I was mentioning earlier in the program that this week in Idaho alone, there are over 150 events related to school choice, which is one of the hottest issues in the country right now, especially with the new nominee for the Secretary of Education in Washington, Betsy DeVos, being a proponent of this. And many states already have some degree of school choice. But obviously, there are people who believe that in the long run, if it benefits the kids, we need something nationwide and we need states to recognize complete school choice. We're joined this morning. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, too, as well, there is a big event taking place. It's a legislative breakfast in Boise this morning to impress this upon our legislators. But we're joined this morning by the national president for National School Choice, Andrew Campanella. And Andrew, first of all, welcome to our program.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
This is this has got to be an exciting time. Obviously, you may have someone very soon in the Department of Education who's really on board with this idea, and it's been a long time.
Absolutely. We are excited about the prospects for school choice all across the country. Idaho alone has seen tremendous growth in school choice options over the last decade. Now it's a national leader in providing public sector education options for families. I think that with the new leadership in Washington using the bully pulpit of their offices, using the megaphone they have to encourage but not coerce states to expand educational choice, we're going to see tremendous new opportunities for children and families, and that's a good thing.
I was looking at the list state by state and their degrees of this, and Idaho is a little bit more down the road than some states, but still not, I guess, from your vantage point, completely there.
That's right. So when we look at school choice, we're talking about all six education options that parents have or want to be able to have for their kids. That's open enrollment in public schools, meaning parents can choose a school outside of their district, and Idaho has been a leader in that. There is open school choice in public schools in Idaho. Charter schools, of which there are many great charter schools in the state, theme-based magnet schools, and Idaho has a lot of those. Full-time, statewide, tuition-free online learning. Idaho has online academies. Homeschooling freedom, the parents where parents can have the freedom to homeschool their kids. Parents are able to do that in Idaho. Now, the one area where Idaho could do more is in providing scholarships or tax credits for parents who might not be able to afford private school tuition for their kids, if that's the right choice for their children. So, in most sectors, Idaho is performing superbly, outperforming many other states. That one section of private school choice is the area where improvements, I guess, could be made.
A breakfast as is taking place this morning is a good way to at least sit down with everybody and you hope get them all on the same page and maybe see some action soon.
Absolutely. And the breakfast in Boise is being planned by local partners, the Charter Association, a group called Bloom. They are fantastic. They work on education issues every single day of the year, year round, and we are so grateful that they are participating in School Choice Week and sharing with legislators today some of the amazing success stories of public school choice in Idaho.
Obviously, the biggest challenge is overcoming opposition, and I don't think we're telling any tales out of school, no pun intended. But you've got very powerful interests, especially with teachers unions, that don't want this because of the competition it will bring.
It's interesting. You think about competition in education, and some people hear those two terms together and they say, no, we can't have competition. Well, think about it this way. Every Friday night on the football field, schools compete against each other. There is competition in academic decathlons, in sports, in rankings. There's competition in education all over the place. So why shouldn't schools compete against each other for students? Because we know, based on every other aspect of American society, that when entities compete for customers, those entities eventually get better and customers are better served. So let's let parents choose the best schools for their kids. It's a shame that there are some groups still out there who think that we need to focus not on the kids who are supposed to be served by education, but on the systems and the bricks and mortar buildings and the bureaucracies. Let's focus on who is supposed to be served here, and that's children and families.
When it comes to this, every parent out there would like their child to get the best potential or possible education. And it always has seemed to me, when we go all the way back into the 1980s, when Ronald Reagan talked about a voucher system, so you'd have that choice and build that competition, that this is a no-brainer. But the opposition sometimes, I don't know, it doesn't seem rational. Would you agree with that?
I would say that people like to describe school choice as controversial, and opponents of school choice like to say that it's so controversial. But in reality, if you really think about it, and you think about how we do everything else in this country, and how we do higher education, where there is an abundance of choice and opportunity, parents can choose community colleges, private and religious schools, get Pell Grants, scholarships, financial aid for their kids, you name it. And when you think about that, and you think about choices of doctors and choices of hospitals, and when you go to the grocery store, choices in the bread aisle of every possible bread you want to eat, and choices at the car lot when you want to buy or rent a car, you have so many different options. So what's really controversial is not the idea of providing parents choice, it's the idea that not enough parents have choices. That is what's truly controversial about school choice, not the concept of it, the lack of it in too many places.
Our guest is Andrew Campanella. He's joining us today. This is National School Choice Week, and he's the president of his organization. And we've got 33 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Bill Cowley with you as well on the air this morning, of course, until 10 o'clock. Uh, when we're talking about all of this, and you hear this comment made, some of the sniping going on at the nominee for the federal secretary. When I hear this, and somebody brought up the other day that she and her husband, and I guess they were able to send their own children, made their own choices, but everybody who currently does that is paying twice. That's at least how I understand this works. You're already paying for government schools. The parents who are sending their children off to another school at this moment are paying what it might cost them for that private education versus we're being hit twice if that's your choice to make. It's a huge sacrifice, and that in itself, when you hear people out there, some of the opponents talk about fairness. They use that word fairness a lot in all sorts of different areas, politically and socially. There's no fairness right now for a lot of these parents who are making these choices.
Well, that's right. And a lot of people are paying multiple times for education, and they haven't complained about it, and they're not really asking for, uh, anything for themselves in many cases. They're simply asking for other families, families who may not necessarily have the money to afford these options to be able to access them for their kids. So, school choice is fundamentally about making sure that every single child is treated as a unique individual. And every kid is different. Some kids learn in certain ways, other kids learn in different ways. And when we can pair students up with the schools that meet their needs, we know they're more likely to get a better education, they're more likely to graduate from high school, which is so important, and their parents are more likely to be happy with the educational environment that they've chosen for their kids. So what we need is more, not less, school choice.
I had a friend, a lot of evidence today is anecdotal, I understand, but it does bring it home when you can try to personalize it. Had a friend from church, and he spent 43 years working the overnight shift in a postal sorting plant so that he could put his four children through parochial schools, all of whom became huge successes. But he was taken out of that building and forced into retirement after 43 years. He was taken out in an ambulance. The sacrifices people are currently making, I don't think a lot of the opponents even have any understanding or grasp of that.
No, they may not, and they may choose to ignore it. And the reality is that there are a lot of families making tremendous sacrifices for their children's education. And when it gets really down to brass tacks, every single parent in this country wants what is best for their kids. That is, I think, something that everybody can agree on, whether we agree or completely disagree about school choice. So if we can agree that every parent wants what's best for their kids, we should also see if we can agree that parents should be able to determine the right education environment for their kids because they know their kids the best. And parents are told time and time again by a lot of folks that they need to be more involved in their kids' education. And you know what? That's absolutely the correct statement. But you can't tell parents on one hand and sort of chide them for not being involved enough in their kids' education, and then on the other hand, complain that the reason we're not seeing more success when it comes to achievement and results is because parents aren't involved when we don't give them choices in where they send their kids to school. You have to involve parents from the very beginning, and that means letting them choose.
Speaking of involvement, when we talk about this, a lot of people listening today would say, "All right, how do I then get involved, and how would I place pressure?" Because clearly, you may have a lot of legislators who are in agreement, but at least letting them know that you're for this. How do we go about doing that?
I encourage people who support school choice in any of its forms. I mean, this isn't just about one type of school choice or about saying that one type of school is better than all the rest. It's about saying that parents who know their kids the best should determine what's best for their individual kids. So we want people to let their legislators know, talk to their lawmakers. Also, use this week as an opportunity to look at schools for your kids. There are so many great public school and private school options in Idaho. And if families take School Choice Week this week as an opportunity to look at the options available for the next school year, they will have enough time to find a good choice if they're not happy right now. So talk to neighbors, talk to legislators, talk to other parents, and start looking at your choices if you want to make a change.
And lastly, for people tuning in this morning, is there a place if they'd like to learn more, you would send them a website or something along those lines?
Sure, you can go to our website, which is schoolchoiceweek.com. We're also going to be tweeting about this all day using hashtag schoolchoice on Twitter.
Andrew Campanella, I want to thank you for your time this morning. I understand you're a very busy man, but it's a great cause, and we wish you some good luck on this one.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Take care, sir.
You too.
Andrew Campanella joining us this morning. He's the president of National School Choice, and this is National School Choice Week getting underway. A big event in Boise this morning at the state capitol. And as I said earlier, 154 events taking place this week alone statewide in Idaho. And you can only imagine then that we're talking thousands, if not more, taking place across the country. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. I looked outside. It looks like the snow has tapered off a bit, but of course, we're going to have some cold weather again near the end of this week with some single digit temperatures, overnight lows. And if you're having difficulty heating your home and your furnace isn't efficient as it should be, you need to be calling the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley. They'll come out and they'll get the job done right, and they'll get it done right the first time. Problem-free, cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Telephone number is 678-0459. That's 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. We've got more on the way in just a couple of minutes. Did you know some of the people arrested in Friday's mayhem in Washington could be spending the next 10 years of their lives in prison? Details on the way.